Similar to our last video that shows how to do a size and type label, I want to now show how we can do a particular entry, for example, like a building label, but instead of placing it on a point, we want to put it at the centroid of a closed shape. And so in this example would be, for example, the label of a building. And we take a look at the attribution in our raw data file, you will see that we have number of stories is set to 1 story and the type is set to wood framed. And so building the label is going to be the same as we did for the tree. It's the placement of the label when we build the annotation that's going to be different. So let's go ahead and go through that process. And so let's go back to our DGN library that we've been working in. And I'm going to go in to look at our building, and I went ahead and left this mapped from a prior example so that we can kind of just understand how to build this one. And so we're going to build this label, and so we'll go to our place text command, and again the first line is going to be building. We need to make sure to pick our text style as we've been doing, so survey topo label, and it's going to be building. That we always want in this particular case. Now you could argue that instead of having the word building in there, which would make this text favorite exclusive to buildings, you could come in and make this a little bit more generic. But in this particular case, I think having a text favorite specific to a building makes sense because it is specific in terms of the annotation attribution. So we'll go building. For our prefix title, we'll do an enter, and again we're going to go back to element properties, and so I'm going to select element properties and I'm going to pick our building boundary and go down to, once again, our linear feature attributes pair, and where we have our number of stories, okay, if you remember we have that to fill in, we're going to type in the same attribute name here, so number stories, and then when we complete that you'll see it returns a value of 1 story, which will make up our second line. We'll do another enter here and go down to our element properties one more time, and again there's nothing really new here from what we did with the size and type, and so we'll select this one, and on the attribute name here now it's going to be type, and it should return wood framed. We'll say OK to that. And again, this part's the same. We'll right click, we'll save text favorite. You're going to go ahead and save it and then rename it. And so we're going to call this one, let's say we call this survey building label or survey topo building label, something like that. Press enter, and that'll accept that name. We'll close out. And now that we have the text favorite done, we're going to go back to our standards and we'll go down to our annotation groups for our plan. Now you're going to be tempted to put this under point, but this isn't really a point. Now we're going to learn something new here. This is going to be in linear 3D, and so we're going to make a new category here called survey, and under survey we're going to make a new entry, and we're going to call this building label, something like that, for our example. And then we're going to go ahead and manage. Now this is a different type. This isn't a point, this is a linear, and so we're going to add new. You want a linear 3D annotation. The side slope annotation is for things like tadpoles used over in Europe and Australia. We're going to be working here with linear 3D annotation, and so we are going to be placing text and the template. We already have that established, so we can select that part. We don't have a leader, and our placement we're going to go ahead and set as typically an angle value of 0, and you can work with that, do what you want to do on that, but that's just in terms of where it's at in terms of the centroid. And then the most important thing here is we want to pick the favorite. We'll go ahead and select our survey topo point label. I might want to go back and correct my spelling later. I can do that later. But once you get the idea here, obviously it's just putting this everywhere. And so we need to change the where location. So in the where, we need to go ahead and change this and set this to points and then center. And this is what you would do to put something at the centroid of a shape. So it would be points and center. And so now if we take a look here, we'll have an example of what that's going to look like. So we'll go ahead and close the dialog, and that saves our changes. And then we're going to go to our feature symbologies just like we've been doing. And under our feature symbologies, we'll expand down this time to our linear existing. And then we're going to go down to find our building. And so for example, I right click here and I go to properties, and then you're going to set your annotation group not for your plan here but for your 3D. You want to go to plan, linear 3D, survey, and building label, and then that will then force this label to be put on that particular entry. And so if we go back to our survey file and again we proceed to annotate model, we'll accept that and allow that to draw. We should then see our different types of building labels come in based on what is in our attribution within our raw data.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.